where not just women are in danger, but all marginalized people, where being uniquely different right now might truly be considered a crime. It seems as though we had all slipped into a false sense of comfort, that justice would prevail and that good would win in the end. Well, good did not win this election, but good will win in the end. So what today means is that we are far from the end. Today marks the beginning of our story. The revolution starts here. The fight for the right to be free, to be who we are, to be equal. Let's march together through this darkness, and with each step, know that we are not afraid. That we are not alone. That we will not back down. That there is power in our unity, and that no opposing force stands a chance in the face.
The Women's Convention 2017 was held in Detroit, Michigan over the weekend. It started Friday, Saturday, and Sunday there. There was a list of speakers, starting with Auntie, as we call her, Maxine Waters, the representative from Los Angeles. She holds a very famous spot. There was a gentleman that represented that district there at Compton, Watts, etc., named Augustus Hawkins. You'll hear his name when they have the Humphrey Hawkins report that the Fed gives to the Congress. That appears roughly twice a year, and of course we've covered many of those Dr. Yellen reports to Congress there on the dual mandate of the Federal Reserve. That is for maximum employment and financial stability. We won't stop there, but what was interesting about the Women's Convention was who did not show up. We had a number of people there. There was false rumors out there that Bernie Sanders was going to be the keynote speaker. He was never going to be the keynote speaker. The keynote went to Maxine Waters. And this grassroots organization of many people, they filled the auditorium there in Detroit. Several senators did, in fact, show up. The senator from Michigan, Debbie Stabenow, was there. Also, Amy Klobuchar of Minnesota, and Christine Gillibrand of New York. She represents upstate New York. The latter two are potential presidential candidates in 2020. Now, the ones that were not there, we didn't see anything. The Hillary the Monster Clinton was not around. I guess she was off sending emails. And some of the other potential candidates there were not there. Women, that is. We didn't see our own Senator Warren there. She was evidently not there. Not that she's running for president in 2020. She's running for re-election to the Senate in the Commonwealth. But we also did not see the senator from California, Harris. Harris was not there either. But a number of them that were there talking about various health plans. Senator Stabenow talked about the bipartisan effort on behalf of Obamacare and the subsidies being finalized. And on the other end of the spectrum, we had Senator Klobuchar talk about discount generic drugs from Canada and what have you. But Christine Gillibrand went a step further, talking about single payer. Now, those of us in the progressive community, the liberal community, and the common sense community, we use that particular adjective, are pushing a single payer. The late, great Jerry Pippen pushed a single payer. At the time, we supported Obamacare as a stopgap. Now, obviously, single payer is the way to go, or Medicare for all, or whatever you want to call it, is the way to go with health care. And what has happened here, due to the extreme positions taken by the right of Senator DJ Trump operation, it is now repairing Obamacare as it limps along and moving towards the 2020 and the agitation stage, but actually the campaign stage for single payer. A number of these candidates will be going in that direction. We'll do a little PSA here in a minute, but let's about the recent events in New York. 8 people lost their lives. A moment of silence here. That is an unfortunate occurrence. When you talk about violence, and of course DJ Trump is talking about death penalties, death penalties are irrelevant in this particular crime. The individual that was caught, he's already confessed. In fact, he wants a flag in his medical center room with the ISIL logo, or what do you want to call it, their flag. So he's not interested in that, nor are any of these people interested in that particular situation. But what does interest us is labeling this an act of terrorism. But we had the same thing happen in Virginia, Charlottesville, Virginia. Ms. Heyer was killed by a white supremacist, a domestic terrorist, same as what happened on the bike trail in New York on the Upper West Side. It's the same thing. It has to be labeled correctly. Out in the western state of Colorado, an individual walked into a Walmart and killed 3 people. That is a domestic terrorist. We have to put the same brush on all of these people. Now, how they are disposed of, that's a particularly different situation. The justice system is there. This also shows a hole in DJ Trump's so-called immigration policy. He's talked about increased vetting. Well, he can vet people for 50 years if he wants. That just means once they enter the country, things are different there. So you have people that are already here. This individual was here 7 years. You have people here 10 years, 20 years, could potentially come in there. Because when you have an atmosphere of violence, they seen the car down in Charlottesville, Virginia, used as a weapon. So thus, this particular individual went out, rented a truck from one of the home improvement centers, or whatever you want to call it, and supposedly pressed is driving it around. He was in the driving business, and he thus did the caper. But it doesn't really matter if people rent these trucks or they steal these trucks. They're so-called soft targets across a vast country, as these 51 continuous United States is utterly impossible to protect. You can't cover all of them. If people are willing to do it, so like the Kmart, they'll walk in there, or Walmart, and walk in there and shoot some people, and this fellow walked out. Now, they have a picture of him. They will catch him eventually. But the whole situation is when you have this atmosphere, and DJ Trump did not condemn the act of terrorism in Charlottesville. Well, you bring on more terrorism. And tougher laws for many of these people doesn't really matter. They don't care about being executed or being killed. That is the business they're in. We have to address the whole atmosphere of violence itself, or we are getting nowhere, period. Now, this individual came here under something called diversity lottery. Now, that was an act signed by the first president, George H.W. Herbert Walker Bush, in the 90s. Now, there was a different situation there. What that allows a person to do is win literally a lottery. And once that individual is admitted into the country, different climate, they can bring in family members. So supposedly this person brought in 20-something family members. He's Uzbek. They were not looking at Uzbeks in even the time that he came in. But we have hundreds of thousands of people since 1990. That's 27 years that people have come in under that act. But now there's been a call for comprehensive immigration. If that had been passed, John McCain worked for it and various others, we would not have that particular act. It would be eliminated. The Congress will eliminate it now. But the people are already here. And the whole idea was to bring in people from countries that were not as well represented. Italy was one of those countries. And, of course, Uzbekistan would be one. And several others that are more out of the mainstream of immigration. Now, where that stands with the so-called under the Trump ban, not really certain about that because, again, this was 1990. Chuck Schumer was in the House of Representatives at the time, and he was one of the authors, but it was a bipartisan thing. It passed, and President Bush signed it. So what Trump is trying to deflect from his own problems and the counterintelligence agencies that knew about this gentleman, but yet they did not see him as a danger. Now, this is the second worst terrorist attack in U.S. in New York since 9/11. So that means DJ Trump's whole so-called anti-terrorist program is not working. He has to take responsibility for this and explain to the people exactly how hard it is to determine this in a vast country with hundreds of thousands of bike trails, shopping centers, stores like Walmart, etc. That is something you simply just cannot get around. Back to the Women's Convention. It was a grassroots convention. Women were there. And on Friday Java, tomorrow night, we used the speech from the entertainer Madonna describing the Women's March and what it would mean. So now the real hard work, the grassroots organizing is beginning to take place. The organizers there, Ms. Malloy, and the others there that were involved in the original Women's March, Ms. Lesua, the Palestinian, and various others, too numerous to name. You'll hear some of those speeches in the other segment here as we leave. But firstly, let me just do a little bit of a PSA here for the Affordable Care Act. Yes, it started officially on the 1st of November. It will end on the 15th of December. The DJ Trump operation is what's called the 2018 open enrollment is here. That is at federalhealthcare.gov. That's the federal site. And it is there, and both it and the state insurance sites have various of those around the country also. Now, there's been a 90% reduction in federal advertisement payments there, so fewer people will be notified through the normal process. But there are 25 million of consumers who once had coverage at some point from healthcare.gov. Emails were only sent to people with current plans through the marketplace created by the law. Now, I was looking at the plan out in Colorado. Business is going on as usual out there. And in many other states here, this is a sort of a little review. We'll have a more of a formal announcement here. Now, some Sundays also, this site will be down. Very weak need situation there. They are mentioning some people. One guy named Randy Lang. He is a retired cowboy from Scott City, Missouri. Said in a rhinestone button shirt, boots, the whole thing. across the desk from what they call a navigator. That's someone that would help people do it. Name, gender, Harper. Anyway, he had been long insured, ignored stubborn chest pains while caring for his wife of 20 years. After she died, he went to a free clinic screening where he found out that he had an aneurysm. I didn't want to get up in the morning, he said, but my buddies on me like white on rice. Interesting thing there. Anyway, he typed his income in from Social Security, a small portion, a small pension into the healthcare.gov to start his enrollment. That's what his buddies are there, she said. In Maryland, and so they mentioned some other people here. This is some anecdotal information at Connect, Colorado. We looked at that site, nice, impressive site there. The staff, by mid-afternoon, increased their projection for calls. This is from day one, from 2,700 to 4,000. The volume was running ahead of the past 2 years, no doubt about it. People are trying to get in on 2018 because they believe perhaps that'll be the last year. 650 who had created accounts on the federal site were already 1/3 greater than the entire first day of last year. So we'll start getting more information on this. Access Help is in Connecticut, received 5,000 calls by late afternoon and had roughly 1,000 people on its website at any given time. That is from the Lieutenant Governor there, Nancy Wyman. Other sites were quieter. Now, University of Southern Mississippi, as in Hattiesburg, a fellow there was trying to get through with his navigation. In Charlottesville, Elizabeth Alcord was ready to fill out her first application since selling her dental practice this year became because of worsening arthritis. Oh, I see. But soon she began, something popped up. This sometimes happens. It could not be, that her identity could not be identified. She made several calls for help, and in the end was told the only way she could shop for a plan was to mail in 2 forms of ID for both her and her husband to an address in Kentucky. And then wait. I was nervous, Alcor said. I am older. My husband is 61. Insurance is costing, oh boy, $2,000 a month and killing us, no doubt about it. But there are other things she can also do and get this done very quickly. Now, another retired chemical engineer, his name is John May, he's in Houston, said he had some initial problems with the screen. Now, in Nashville, the mayor there, Megan Barry, was going to join Bill Lloyd, Ashley Cleveland, and some others at a healthcare rock event, and nationwide supporters of Laura tweeting with the hashtag, we'll put this down, get covered now to spread the word. We'll use this particular hashtag. In previous years, about half of his customers found their way to dchealthlink.com by first going to healthcare.gov and being transferred once they type in where they live. With so much less government effort to generate attention, she's not sure this will happen. Well, you have 45 days, and normally to get this done, you should get it done this week. We encourage people as quickly as possible to get it done. If you have to go up late night, go up late night. If you're already in the system, you're in the system. Announced that 4 separate kinds of maintenance schedules between 4 and 12 hours this coming Sunday. So look out for those, but you want to get it done. This is Thursday, so you have today, you have Friday, and you have Saturday to get the business done. Don't procrastinate. Get out there and get it done. Make sure you have your identification. They're just verifying your citizenship there. That's really no big deal. Your driver's license, social security card, voter registration card will take care of that. And if you're already in the system, you don't really need to worry about it at all. That is one of the things out there. Let me just throw in a little bit of polling here, and we'll go to the esteemed representative from South Central Los Angeles, Auntie Waters, and the rest of the people. Now, this is from Real Clear Politics here. We've been looking at these polls, and they're all over the place, quite frankly. The thermometer poll, this is in Jersey. Murphy has always been ahead there by 14. CBS has the approval rating of the current regime at 39, Gallup at 35. He's been hovering now, DJ Trump. Rasmussen at 43, Reuters at 36, 43 at YouGov. The Economist said that's an internet poll. I won't even get a congressional. That's only in the 20s, not even worth even talking about. But these, the Democrats, it's a generic ballot from YouGov by 3 points. They've been all over the place on this one. The right direction, wrong direction, right direction. And this is the same thing we saw with the Obama administration. 31% think things are going wrong, right. 58% on the wrong track. If you go to Reuters, 63% on the wrong track. 64%. It's excuse me, it's CBS News. The Washington Post poll here, this is in Virginia. Northam is ahead by 5 points. Some polls had him ahead by Quinnipiac by 17. Excuse me. And PPP, the approval rating there is 38, I'm sorry. And they have the Democrats up on the generic ballot by 10 points there. PPP out of South Carolina. The Suffolk poll, basically about the same thing. Murphy is ahead by 16. That's in Jersey. Emerson poll, the same thing by 16 points there. And it was on Monday, and we also have the generic poll here from NBC, Wall Street Journal. Democrats up by 7. There's polling company, I guess that's a Republican poll, had Gillespie up by 2. That was on last Friday. And Mason-Dixon, that's in Florida, forget that. We won't even worry about it at all. But that's basically a roundup of things going on. That DJ Trump, I think we talked about that, calling for death penalties. That's just foolishness. And let's see what else we got. Well, the Republicans later today, and we'll have to do a special program on this, will finally put out their tax bill. Now, if it's complete, we have no idea. And another sort of oddball thing here is some conservative type has been banned from Uber and Lyft all at the same time after she complained that all she could find was Muslim drivers. Well, a lot of this is going to be clarified here using a technology. And what will happen is, and Uber is working on this, and so is Lyft and GM, when they have self-driving automobiles. They're going to move this much more closely, and what that allows them to do by using a big data, they can do that now, and you'll see this coming. That these rent-a-truck companies that have GPS, they will, as they say in the colloquial, tighten it up, and they will be able to track people that rent those. So that is going to be deepened, and of course also you're going to see extra security at bike tracks, cement walls, etc. going up. And before we leave, congratulate the Houston Astros. They won the World Series handily in Los Angeles. Chavez Ravine there 5-1. LA pitching just collapsed, and they simply could not get it done. We'll talk about that more. We'll look back at the World Series in our new program all about sports. And we still have Catalona here for our international program, BR on the World. Well, we're trying to wait till things sort of settle down a bit. It has various machinations to it. We'll get that out this weekend. We'll have numbers, man. We'll talk about some new numbers that are out. and combine that with the tax bill. Hopefully we'll get some things straight there. We'll see you on on Friday Jobber. That is on Friday morning. And the week that was, we'll also see you there. And the Monday morning quarterback, and now that baseball season is over, we'll start looking more and more to college basketball, college football, and we'll be looking to the NBA. We are boycotting the NFL, so we don't report their scores, but what we do report when there are news items involving the NFL. Incidentally, Ms. Wobbles, she's out in Salt Lake City, Utah, the Salt Lake Tribune, that she settled with the medical center there for $500,000, $500,000. She's going to donate money, some of the money proceeds, to the Nurses Association to get the word out. We'll have more of that. I'm on the week, but are on Friday Jobber when we can get to that part of the situation. Nonetheless, on we go to Auntie Waters and some of the other speakers at the Women's Convention was held over the weekend in Detroit, Michigan. Good day.
She spearheaded the development of the minority aid, which under her continuing leadership has increased from the initial appropriation of $156 million to $400 million today. All right, so Auntie, it's your time.
Because the media loves to lie. The first person we worked to get here to this conference was Maxine Waters. We called her and we asked her whether we were allowed to grace you all with the name reclaiming our time, and she agreed that that was the right title for this conference. And while I like my brother Bernie Sanders a lot, he was not the headline keynote for the Women's Convention. You are looking at the keynote and the headline of the convention, Congresswoman Maxine Waters.
To discuss the issues and concerns of women in this country. Ladies and gentlemen, it is so important
that we say thank you, and we give recognition to those who decide to spend their time understanding and knowing that we're powerful and we're strong. If we come together, they work at it. They make it happen. Give them a big round of applause. We've got to acknowledge the Women's March Board members, Janae Ingram and Breanne Butler. Give them a round of applause. Now, there are some women in the audience that I know you have heard from and you see from time to time on television. I don't know if you really understand how hard they work and what they do every day and what we're all up against and how they stand up and they push back and they resist. I want you to give Senator Debbie Stabenow a big round of applause. Congresswoman Brenda Lawrence. Brenda is a powerful member of Congress. I love her voice. She does not take anything off of anybody. Thank you, Brenda Lawrence. Give her a big round of applause. And of course, you heard from Congresswoman Debbie Dingell. She is a powerful voice. You see her on television. She too stands up in the back room when nobody is looking, and she tells it like it is. Give her a big round of applause. You know, there is a member of Congress who has been supportive of women for many, many years. He is quiet, he is confident, he is powerful, but he has impeccable integrity on all of our issues. Give John Conyers a big round of applause. And so, ladies and gentlemen, you have these members of Congress who are working hard every day under some very difficult circumstances. But I can't tell you how thrilled I am to be here in Detroit, Michigan, to once again tell the world that the women in this country are reclaiming our time. Women's March. It was not a protest, it was a movement that was founded for women and by women from all walks of life who were very concerned with the future and direction of this country. I walked and I talked and I laughed and I cried and I saw those pussycats and I went crazy. It was wonderful. That January march sent a message around the world. We are reclaiming our time. We today, I'm so glad you're here, but we're speaking to women who are single mothers, women who work 2 and 3 jobs, making minimum wage or less, women who have been exploited, harassed, or taken advantage of in their personal and professional lives. Women who are suffering from illnesses and diseases that are worried about the future of health care. Women who have been disrespected in the boardroom or feel that their talent is not appreciated or valued in the workplace. Today, we're gathered once again to discuss the issues and organize a plan of action to continue our resistance. And I thank the co-founders of the Women's March for inviting me here to share what I believe are our most pressing and immediate concerns. Now I want to just take time to focus on something that I think we need to focus on right now. It is very fortuitous that we're gathered here this afternoon in Detroit as we continue to witness a record number of women who are boldly coming forward to reveal disturbing and grotesque acts of sexual harassment, assault, and rape, oftentimes at the hands of men who believed they were too rich and too powerful to ever be confronted or held accountable. We've learned that it's not only Hollywood actresses and entertainers who have been targeted and assaulted by such perverted and disgusting people. It's also members of Congress, like my colleagues, Congresswoman Jackie Speier and Congresswoman Gwen Moore, and other politicians, teachers, nurses, women in the military, and so many others who may have lived in shame or fear, but have now boldly come forward with their own Me Too stories and expose just how prevalent rape culture is in our society. In addition to all of the issues women are fighting for, such as equal pay for equal work, paid maternity leave, quality and affordable health care, and equal access to opportunity, at the top of our agenda at this convention, there must be an effort to strengthen women's courage and inspire them to continue to come forward and reveal the abuses that they have silently endured. This convention must be designed as a declaration that women are unified and that we support one another in this fight. Whether you're black, white, green, yellow, whatever, rich or poor, young or old, let the word go forward this day that the women at this convention and all across the country have had enough. Enough is enough. We are not going to take it anymore. Enough is enough. We're waging our own war against rape and sexual harassment. We're waging a war against the perverts who believe that we can be misused or exploited in the interest of a job or recognition or even so-called love. Today we declare we're not taking it anymore. Today we declare that we will not tolerate, ignore, or be a part of a culture that turns a blind eye to sexual harassment and violence. We don't care who you are, how much money you have, how powerful you are, and how you think you are powerful. Keep your nasty comments away from us. Keep your tricks and your lies to yourself. And keep your hands off our backs and our goddamn bottoms. Understand the cost of silence. Just take a look at who we now have in the White House. Donald Trump is the most dishonorable and despicable human being to ever serve in the office of the president. His declaration of being able to grab women by their private parts, or his own history with sexual assault violations and disrespect of women, is the kind of mentality that sends a message to men and young boys out there that if the President of the United States can get away with it, so can I. This president has no respect for women. You saw him point to his Republican primary opponent, Carly Fiorina, and say, look at that face. Would anyone vote for that? Can you imagine that? The face of our next president? I was there also in Missouri at the third debate when he stalked Hillary Clinton and stood behind her, breathing down her back in an effort to intimidate her. And as I listened to her today talk about her experiences during that campaign, and she said she wanted so badly to turn around and look at him and say, creep, get off my back. And the reason that she had not done it was because the consultants and the political handlers tell women, we can't say certain things, we can't do certain things. We have to stop taking that advice. You know how you feel. And you know when you have been violated. You know when you have been mistreated. You understand how you've been misused. her a racist nickname. He attacked Mika Brzezinski, said she had a low IQ. He tried to discredit former National Secretary Advisor Susan Price, and he attacked Jamil Hill after she told the truth. Over the past 2 weeks, he's continued to attack my dear colleague and friend, Congresswoman Frederica Wilson, calling her wacky in an attempt to distract us from the fact that he has no respect for military families when his chief of staff, John Kelly, a 4-star general who was supposed to be so highly respected, who had had such a brilliant career, blatantly lied on Congresswoman Wilson and attacked her credibility. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is number 45. This is the President of the United States. This is a man with no good values, no good intentions, and no respect. That's why I know we must keep fighting, and that women must lead this resistance. With so much at risk, we cannot afford to be shut down or to be shut up by any man, particularly not one as indecent and deplorable as Donald Trump. Every day that he is in the White House is an affront to all of our nation's most sacred values. This is a president who has insulted a grieving widow and even a Gold Star soldier. This is a president who mocked a disabled reporter. This is a president who was slow to condemn the white supremacists, the KKK, the Nazis, and the alt-right. But he called the NFL players who peacefully protested during their games sons of bitches, who should be fired, he said. This is a president who has obstructed justice right before our eyes. Finally, this is a president who I believe did collude with the Russians to undermine our democracy. This is a president who can call everybody a name except Putin in Russia. This is a president who told us before he was elected that he was going to lift the sanctions for Russia. This is a president who's not only colluded with Putin, but this is a president who understands not only what he is doing for Russia, but indeed what Tillerson is doing, who's supposed to be his Secretary of State. They are aligned because they want to lift the sanctions to drill for oil in the Arctic. It's all about money. Follow the dollar, and you'll understand what they're doing. They don't care about you. They don't care about me. They don't care about America. They don't care about our democracy. It's about the dollar. It's about the money. And so, I understand that there may be some indictments coming in the next day or so. That are allied around oil and around support for Russia. And guess what? I want to thank you all for being the patriots that you are. You believe enough in this country that you're willing to stand up and fight for democracy, fight for the right for everybody to participate and be treated equally. Those on the other side of the aisle who claim to be patriots, who claim that they wave their flag higher than we do, are not patriots. They're willing to sit back. They have no guts. They are afraid of this president, and instead of standing up and accepting responsibility, they are sitting back because they're afraid that they won't be reelected. They should not be reelected. that message. If we really want to show them our strength, join with me. Let's impeach 45.
The rich and powerful control all the levers of power, and those levers of power marginalize women, people of color, the working class, and anyone who isn't in their club. They deny us equal opportunity and fair pay and reproductive rights. Just this week, in the dark of night, the U.S. Senate voted to strip protections for everyday working Americans against big financial institutions that are ripping them off. Inequality in this country is out of control, and the balance of power is skewed.
The scientists have been predicting this for years. Wildfires, hurricanes, floodings, horrible natural disasters, which, by the way, are in stark contrast to the White House, which is a man-made disaster.
And when you talk about rights and freedom, don't get it twisted. Our dreamers deserve rights and freedoms in this country. Dreamers who in their lifetime have only pledged one allegiance, and that is to the United States of America. We have work to do.
We're in a fight of America. We're in a fight for who we are. They do not represent who we are. That is not America. That hate and racism, and that is not America. That is not us.
So the opening remarks just ended. We had 3 senators speak.
Trans folks every day. Senator Nina, how do you keep your eye on the prize? How do you know where to keep your focus? Because it's hard out here when you got an administration playing chaos on us every day.
You know what, sisters, we've been here before. You know, and as far as I'm concerned, there's not one man or one woman. People who are determined to do evil will not succeed. And so we cannot base our feelings on one moment in time. We have to be determined to have that perseverance that is needed. So pushing and breathing, protesting and planning, and making sure that we persevere. And so we always have to be determined to make sure that we are going to keep the faith, because we've been here before. You think about my ancestors who fought generation after generation for liberation. We've been here before. We think about women who have fought for their rights in this country to be treated as equals. Baby, we have been here before. We think about all the great movements in this country that move this country towards liberation, equality, and justice. We have been here before. So there's not one Trump that can stop us from understanding that our mission is so high, we can't get over it. And our mission is so low, we can't get under it. And our mission is so wide, we cannot get around it. That a determined people, and sisters, we know about determination, we know about fight, we know what it takes. Linda, can I just go just 1 minute?
Girl,
it's the preacher in me. But you know, my mama was an evangelist. And so since Linda coming from the church tradition, I got to put something on it. If I was on a Sunday morning black church, now if y'all ain't never been to black church, baby, you got to go. You got to go. But if I was on a Sunday morning service, Women Day, excuse us fellas, but I would say the following, that if God made anything better than a woman.
January 21st, now we're in October, we're still fired up. These people are fired up, I'm fired up. And I think that perpetual outrage is going to keep us moving. We have no choice but to continue to organize, to continue to fight. We have an administration that is absolutely relentless, and they wake up every single morning anti-somebody and trying to hurt somebody or some community. And I'm very proud of the people that are saying, nope, not this time, not this generation, not on our watch. So I still have a lot of hope that this movement will continue far beyond just the January 21st march.
Senator, you've run for office a couple of times. You were in office. Yeah. You know the fights. You know what it takes to be a woman running against the establishment. Yeah. I'm
still running against the establishment.
Still running against the establishment. We know this.
Every day. Right, every day.
What advice do you have for so many of these women who are curious, interested, who said they're going to run for office? Let's be real here. It's not easy. What is it going to take?
Women need to know why they want to run. I mean, I was just talking to a young lady. I don't know if she left, but she's from Iowa. She said she drove 7.5 hours to come to this event. She said she did it for me, but I won't be that broke. You know, I was about to tear up. But she said, I want to be on the federal level, but I need to start on the local level. And I said to her, start where your heart leads you. See, it's just so funny how men can just wake up and roll out of bed and say, I'm running for president. But then women think, oh, I got to start on the local level. Now, the local level is important because I served on the local level. That's right. That is the government that's closest to the people. It is the purpose, the part of government where you can't run from the people. You have that close connection. Being on the local level is just as important as running on the federal level. But I want women to know, run for the level that speaks to you. If it is about pure service day to day in the neighborhoods, in the community, then run for local. If it is about pushing public policy that is a little different from school policy to Medicaid for all and all that kind of stuff, then it's state or federal. But don't allow anybody to tell you that you are not qualified to do what you have been purposed to do and what is in your heart. So know why you're running, know why you want to serve, and then pick the level of government that you want to serve on and go for it.
That's right. Winnie, you are an organizer. You talk about often the power of leveraging the power of people, using that power to further a movement. You've talked about it a lot. How do you harness this people power right now?
Well, I think that there are similarities between the Women's March and People for Bernie. I mean, in that Linda and I are both women who are and remain staunchly in support of the Bernie movement. It has nothing to do with Bernie. Bernie is a political avatar. He is someone that we can sort of travel through. His platform is unapologetically progressive. He stands for the values of all the women who have attended this convention this weekend and all the people who voted for him in the primary. So I think that, we're holding the politicians accountable now in a way that had never really previously been done before, because they never thought that there would be a moment like this where social movements like the Women's March and People for Bernie and Occupy Wall Street and the environmental justice movement could actually coalesce and say, you know what, we're watching you, and we're going to elect you out of office and someone else into office if you don't do right by us. And so there's a lot of power in the grassroots. The grassroots Women's March local chapters are all here. It's incredible. And that's very powerful. It sends a strong message to certainly all the Democratic senators who spoke this evening understand who they work for now. The power. It's they understand who they work for, and that's nice. That's nice to see. They understand that they're here because they want the support of the women that follow Linda Sarsour and Carmen Perez and Tamika Mallory, 3 women of color who have been on the front lines of all of our social justice fights for decades now, and they're finally at the table. No one gave them a seat, they took a seat at the table. No one gave me a seat, I took a seat at the table. And we're still not, no one gave Nina, Nina was at the table, and then they were like, no, you're going to have to leave the table now. And then she said, you know what? I'm going to come back to the table anyway.
And so make my own table.
That's right. And that's and our revolution is a table that is, that you sit at, and that I sit at, and that Linda sits at.
We all get
That's right.
Very grateful for that.
It's a very special moment.
It's a special moment. I think also, some of the conversations for folks who've been at conferences focusing on women's issues. I'm going to be real. usually it's around just reproductive rights. Very important, but complicated, and it's complicated electorally. I think what I find fascinating about this convention is that there are so many different aspects of issues that relate to every woman in this country. And let's talk a little bit about intersectionality. What are some of these issues that you think don't get highlighted in the press that we need to talk about more because they affect the average woman's life in America?
Since the inception of the Women's March, it's always been about intersectionality. We did not allow there to be a march about reproductive rights and equal pay, right? Because even when you talk about equal pay, who's equal pay? That white women want to get paid the same as white men? What about the black women that don't get paid the same as the white women? What about the immigrant women who get paid less than the black women? So even in that the conversation about equal pay, we got to talk about racial justice, right? We talk about healthcare, you got to talk about poverty and economic justice. So we have brought in a new kind of wave of feminism that is intersectional, that basically looks at women as a whole person and also looks at women as part of a larger community. That is why our community, our at least our version of feminism also includes men. I will not leave my partner, my children, my son, my father, my grandfather, my uncles. I'm not leaving them out of the movement. They also need health care. They also need economic justice. They also need all the benefits that we're talking about in this room today and that we've been talking about. So we are coming to the table to say and to really put forward the words that have been used and said and written by women like Audre Lorde, where she said, we can't have a single issue struggle because we don't live single issue lives. And I think women of color are bringing that kind of perspective to the table and saying, let's go back to the black woman named Audre Lorde. Let's go back to the black woman named Kimberly Crenshaw, who coined the term intersectionality. And this is very important. For us, intersectionality ain't about black women and white women and Asian American Pacific Islanders organizing together. That's not what intersectionality is. That's diversity. That's different. Intersectionality is the intersections of the different oppressions and the different systems that continue to oppress the communities we come from. So you can't dismantle anti-black racism without dismantling homophobia and transphobia and Islamophobia and xenophobia and all the phobias and isms that we're talking about. And we hope that that's what people leave here with, that understanding. And it's also important for us to talk about a movement where those closest to the pain and closest to the problem, we believe are closest to the solution. That's why you'll watch stages across this convention, a majority of women of color, people with disabilities, people who are undocumented, people who are literally directly impacted. Their lives are on the line in this moment. Let's hear what they have to say, and let's let them lead us and tell us where we need to go. And I believe if we sit and we listen and we're open-minded and open-hearted, we will win, because winning is inevitable. But let's listen to the people who are going to help us win. We got really nothing to lose right now in the moment that we're in. I think it just doesn't get worse than this. And I think let's give black women a chance. Let's follow them. I'm pretty sure they're going to take us where we need to go. And that's what I do every day. I follow black women.
We don't have a lot of time.
Let the church say amen. Amen. Yeah.
Amen.
I follow Nina's, but
I definitely follow Nina. I follow both of you. What does it mean to win? I'm going to ask each and every one of you. What does it mean to win?
That it never ends, that we understand that winning is consistent, that it is generational. As one of the ministers that I admire a lot from Cleveland said, the struggle is forever, so we are forever in the struggle. It's not a destination, but it is a journey. And winning means that we include everybody. And I loved how Linda said that our brand of feminism is not just about women, because it is about the wholeness of humanity, and that we cannot take away each other's humanity. So winning means it is a consistent struggle and understanding that this never ends.
Winnie?
What does winning look like, Winnie? I would say that it's like dismantling structural patriarchy and patriarchal capitalism all at once. I say this all the time on TYT.
I know.
So it's fine. Seizing the state, and that means that women have to take control of the government. So at all levels of government, and also actually understand that they have agency over their lives. And that means actually not internalizing structural patriarchy, because I think so much of what happens with women is that we internalize the structural patriarchy that actually encompasses everything that has been created by structural patriarchy, racism, right?
Yep.
Slavery, colonialism. All of these things are parts of structural patriarchy. And women of all races have to actually stop internalizing that. And when we achieve that moment, which I think this convention is actually a good jump-off, kick-off point for that, bringing so many women together across the political spectrum, because there is definitely a difference between the politics that Linda and I support versus like some of the Hillary people who are very much a part of the leadership of the Women's March, right? Like we're coming together and we're having these very difficult conversations about like what that looks like, who we are going to be just challenged by, who needs to listen to us. That's actually our men, you know, and so we can't internalize the sexism and we can't internalize the racism. And so I think that like a lot of very interesting, difficult conversations are being had in both the sessions and also in the hallway conversations and during lunch, you know, where people are like, did you hear what Linda said? Did you hear what Winnie and Nina said on the Medicare panel about this and that? And it sparks, you know, it'll spark a revolution.
Yep. That's right.
You know, our opinions, our collective opinions will actually spark the very necessary sort of cultural revolution that needs to come for women. And we are moving away from an era of patriarchy and into an era of matriarchy, and sooner than later, I hope. So,
Linda.
I mean, I'll look more long-term vision. I mean, winning for me is the day that I don't have to apologize for who I am, the day that I don't have to defend my existence, my humanity, that I don't have to defend my faith, where my parents came from, why my parents came here, and the day that everybody in this country can wake up one morning and say, I have a dream, and guess what? I can fulfill it. I just got to walk through it, versus having to sit and think the 19,000 things that are going to be in your way in order for you to fulfill your dream. So I believe in that potential. When I see people like Senator Nina Turner, I believe in that. I believe in a country that is going to put a woman like her in the highest office of this land. I believe in that. I believe in that vision. That is why I do this work. Because if I didn't believe in that, I would just stick with the status quo and say this is just how it is. And I know this is not how it's supposed to be. So winning is all of us just being unapologetic about who we are, and people loving and embracing one another regardless of anything and any complexity we bring to the table.
Can I just say one more thing? Yeah. This morning, Linda, in her first session, she said something that was so salient and wise, and it really it stayed with me throughout the day, and I'm still thinking about it a lot. She said, the patriarchy fears the solidarity and unity of women. Absolutely. That's what they fear the most. Mm-hmm. So when women are unified and have solidarity for one another, you've won. That's it. They're completely defeated, you know. So that's what's happening here this weekend. It's very, very important. They fear that more than anything else.
They want to divide and conquer us.
Absolutely, yeah. And it starts with the women.
It starts with the women. And if you have men on board, too, with the same, and they're teaching other men how to support women, that's when you win.
That's right. So.
Yeah. It's been an honor to be in this space with you. We love you. We love you so much.
That's right. Still
Thank
Sanders.
you. Thank you for this.
Still Sanders.
Still Sanders.
Still burning.